You are not so great, Britain.
Chapter 2. Britain's rubbish, or why there is so much litter everywhere.
Hi everyone, my name is Elisę. I'm speaking to you from Italy, and here with me from Scotland is Tomasz. Hi Tomasz.
Hi Elisa, hi everyone. I'm in Scotland, as you just said, and I'm looking over from my window and I see some rubbish flying across the street.
Oh, wow.
So I want to tell you a story. I live in the block of flats and the bins are right outside under my balcony.
Mm-hmm.
And on regular basis, local council fails to pick the bins up.
Yeah.
So as you can guess, the bags of litter are placed next to the bins because there's no space in bins, obviously. And then next week, council refused to pick up the bins because they say there is no access to them because, of course, bags of rubbish are lying next to it. So, the pile of rubbish is growing and foxes and seagulls are dragging it all over the place. And then everyone else thinks that this is just some dump. So they start dumping their old furniture and fridges and washing machines. And finally, when me or my neighbors finish our fight with the council, someone comes, cleans this rubbish very roughly. So they just take the bigger bits and all this loose wrappings and rotten food and everything stays. And for a few weeks, we have our bins picked up correctly. And then on 1 week, the bin lorry fails to come again and fails to do a pickup and all starts again. I've been fighting with this for 2 years as I live here. And finally, I just gave up. I just don't care. I don't go around this part of my building because it simple stinks. It's a good thing that it doesn't reach my windows because I'm living a bit up. But what bothers me the most is that nobody cares. Literally nobody cares. Everyone thinks this is completely normal. And just to give you some comparison, my parents recently were very excited because for the first time in many, many years, I think during COVID or something, the bin lorry failed to arrive for the weekly collection.
Oh, wow.
And when the bin lorry came next week, it has 3 guys on it instead of usual 2. And one guy was lifting the bins and the other guy came with a brush and swept everything, even though the bin place is inside my parents' property in their garden. He came and he swapped everything and he picked the smallest bit of rubbish that could be left there from the overflowing bins. And this is that difference which I cannot really understand, that Britain is dirty and nobody cares about it.
Yeah.
How is that?
Yeah, now I remember perfectly everything you talked about from when I stayed at your place for some time. And what I remember, I was staying with you around the time the UN climate change summit was taking place. And I think that what shocked me the most is that while that climate change summit was going on in Glasgow and everybody was talking about it, there was a lot of hype around it. Your building, they don't, basically the bins, they don't allow for recycling, so everything gets thrown in together with everything else, so organic.
Well, actually, I give you the funny bit. As you may notice, there are 2 kinds of bins. One have black lids and the others have blue lids. And the blue lids are supposed to be for recycling, but nobody cares. Everyone puts everything to any bin. And even bin lorries, they just come and they just pick all the bins if they come and pick the bins.
All right.
That is because in theory, there is a recycling, but nobody cares. But still, this recycling is only for some kind of recycled materials. But for example, I am expected to get my bottles and drive to the recycling centers a couple of miles down the road because there's no bottle banks or anything near my place. So if I got a glass bottle once in a few days, it makes no sense for me. So I just gave up because the other thing is that this recycling center is usually very crowded and sometimes you have to queue for 20 minutes to get in. So apart from how time consuming that will be for me, it is also that how is that ecological to drive with 5 bottles for 2 miles in my car,
Yeah.
or I don't know, maybe I should walk, or how they imagine that. So sorry for interruption, but just
No,
wanted to make
no.
it clear, the recycling exists just in theory here.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I always assumed that Italy was the worst possible country in terms of recycling. And then I found out that actually, I don't remember exactly where I read it, but I think that Italy is one of the first countries in Europe for recycling. And recently I was trying to find out how to get rid of oil, the oil you use for frying and cooking, and you
Hmm.
want to get rid of it. How do I get rid of that? And I'm still to test this service, so I might still be in for some nasty surprises. But apparently you contact the local rubbish disposal organism, and you make an appointment, and a van is coming over to your house to retrieve the oil and dispose of it properly. So I'll let you know when I try this if it actually works, but it seems like a very good service, so I hope it doesn't disappoint. But yeah, I always assumed that the UK would be much better in terms of recycling, but it isn't really.
They call it world leading. They
Yeah,
think they are
yeah,
world leading in
like
everything. Yeah.
everything else, of course. But yeah, and one other thing I noticed is that in Italy, when people come in to collect rubbish, they check your bins. They check that everything is sorted out properly. If it's not, they won't take it away. So you
Hmm.
have to be careful, actually. But I mean, it's a good system. It's very efficient, I think. So I was very surprised that I was expecting something similar, if not better, in the UK, and that's not the case.
Yeah, I have to say, I lived in Glasgow before, and it was still not perfect, but it was much better. I
Mm.
had a bottle bank at the corner, and I had recycling bins, I had normal bins, and I had also food recycling bins. So it was better, but still also worked not really so well, because there were very often missed collections of the bins, and we had the same problem with bins overflowing. But this is one thing, but the other thing is that everyone litter, like everyone throw the stuff away. I often see I've recently seen the kids that were sitting on an actual bin, like on the top of it, eating some fish and chips
Oh
from
no.
those plastic boxes, of course, and then just threw it on the floor and walked away.
Jeez.
And the sad thing is that I'm not even trying to like approach them and ask them to be like clean, because if you ask someone to do not throw litter, that's the best way to learn some Scottish insults, because you will hear a lot of them if you dare to approach someone and ask him to do not litter or to pick up after himself. And this is everything. Like, I thought I may get used to it after all those 16 years I'm living in Scotland, but it's actually getting worse. I'm so disgusted. Like when you sit in traffic on the off motorway ramp in the Glasgow city centre, because Glasgow got a motorway that goes right through the middle of the town, and there are the shrubs on the right, and they're like, I don't have that much of toys on my Christmas tree as much rubbish is on those shrubs, and some of them are there for years. You can see some promotional iron brew cans from like a decade ago, like barely recognizable because of course the paint on the cans faded away. And that gives you a clue to how nobody really cleans it.
Nobody seems to care. Yes, I know.
Couple of days actually, last week I've been to a company. I work part-time as a delivery driver on the trucks, and I've been on the company backyards, and they had a fresh cut grass, and the grass was cut, and you could see this, like you can see still smell it, and everything. And yet the I'm having problems to call it alone.
Mm.
This place with the grass was full of rubbish, of some plastic bags, pieces of shrink wrap. I just cannot imagine someone came there with a mower, cut the grass down together with all this plastic and everything, and then looked at this and said, yes, that's a job well done. My lawn is now neatly cut, and walked away. It's just beyond imagination for me.
Yeah, no, I know. I remember when I first moved to the UK for an internship, I was living right by a park and I was quite happy. I thought, oh, I'm going to, spend my afternoons there after work. I'm going to chill in the park. And then when I first went across it, I remember thinking, I would have expected it to be nicer and better kept considering this is the UK. I had this image in my head that the UK and British people are so careful and so respectful of their environment, of, public spaces. And it was actually, it kind of reminded me of an Italian park, to be honest, because Italian parks are not the best kept, if I have to be honest. And I remember just as I was passing by, this guy on a bike passed by. He was drinking a can of beer, and as he finished drinking it, he just literally threw it behind him in the park. He didn't even check if somebody was walking behind him. He might have hit someone, but yeah, he just threw it on the ground, and I was so shocked. Like, I can't believe this. This stuff is supposed to happen in Italy, not here.
Yeah. And the other thing is that you said you were expecting them to be taking care of their country. The problem is they often do take care, but like their vision of what is to clean after themselves is so biased. I give you an example. I'm a keen camper and I like to wild camp in the like most remote places in Scotland. And sometimes you come to a place that you can clearly see that someone camped the last year. You can still see like the patches of the grass when the tents were placed on and so on. And then all the rubbish is gathered to a plastic bag and left there. They probably think, oh, we are so great because we have like cleaned after ourselves.
Yeah.
But they left a bag of rubbish in the middle of nowhere, like
Yeah.
several hundred meters from the nearest roads, and they expect someone else to pick it up. Come on, if you brought your single-use grill, if you brought your beer there, if you brought your food, you should be able to take it away with you after you ate everything and just take rubbish. You picked it, you placed it in a beanbag, just grab this beanbag and walk with it to your car and then dispose of it in the nearest village in some bin.
Yeah.
But they think, oh, we cleaned the rubbish, we put it in the nice, neatly wrapped, tied up plastic bag. We are great because we are taking care of the environment. This is something I don't really get.
Yeah, no, maybe they just assume that the bag is going to walk itself to a bin. I really don't know. I don't get it. But yeah, I've seen that kind of thing lots of times in parks and similar, and yeah, it's mind-boggling, honestly. But
Yeah.
the problem in general, I mean, I'm speaking from my Italian point of view, and I mean, I admit it, Italians might be a bit obsessed with a hygiene. We have very, very high standards of hygiene. And me in particular, being the daughter of my mother and granddaughter of my grandmother, I might have unrealistic hygiene standards. But yeah, that was definitely one of the biggest shocks I experienced when I moved to the UK. Just that, or even the houses where I lived, it was all so dirty. And even when it had been cleaned, because maybe a cleaner had been over, or my housemates decided, oh, it's really time to give it a clean, isn't it? It was still kind of disgusting to me.
Yeah, I've been through that as well. We moved into the professionally cleaned flat and we spent 2 days like rubbing and scrubbing everything because it was sticky and
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I remember another Italian, a friend of mine. She had just arrived for a job, and she was being temporarily hosted by an English family, and they gave her a bedroom in their house. And the windows, the glasses were so dirty that she couldn't actually see outside. So she cleaned them, And then the lady of the house, when she went into her bedroom, she said, "Oh wow, it's so clean. You can see through the window." Yes, that's what's supposed to happen when you have a window.
Yeah. Yeah. I can agree with you. It's like that. But see, I think part of the problem is this culture of like good enough, like go for the
Mm,
lowest possible effort and that'll be good enough. It's you can often see that with renovations, like when you rent a flat, like I was always renting. I wanted to get a mortgage, so I'm
mm,
still renting. And when the landlord sends someone to fix it, they do it as at the least effort possible. I
mm.
had like things like they fitted just a bit of plywood in my bathroom,
Yeah,
completely like unpainted, unprotected from the humidity that it's there. They just screwed it on, and they were happy. Or like I seen people who had some holes made in the walls where the tiles were, and after the construction work was finished to like reach some pipes that were burned behind that, they had just some piece of plaster or even plastic boards
yeah,
put in place of the tiles, and everyone thinks, oh, it's good enough.
yeah.
Or it's the same with vehicles, for example. I'm still doing that. I'm an agency driver, so I'm sent to different companies every week or even every day sometimes. And one of my pet hates is like when you get your vehicle, your truck or your car from the service after the steering was adjusted and
Mm,
your steering wheel is at angle,
yeah,
and nobody cares about that. So you have to keep your steering wheel like say at 45-degree to go straight ahead. Of course it obstructs your view of the clocks and speedometer that is behind that, but nobody cares about it. Or even yesterday we were driving with my girlfriend and there was some cleaning company, a van driving in front of us, and as he was turning right, I've noticed that his liver, like the advertisement, like company logo, and then like services they offer, like commercial cleaning, domestic cleaning, the usual stuff, was at a weird angle. And I thought to myself, that's like a weird design to go those letters at this strange angle. But then he turned left, and they've seen his other side, and his other side was like perfectly straight. So actually, someone paid someone for making a livery to their van, and this guy who was like to put an advertisement on someone else's van don't even bother to do it straight. They just plaster the letter like at random angle. And someone said, okay, yeah, that's job well done. I'd be okay with that. And he drives this van around thinking that's a good advertisement for the company. I don't get it.
yeah. No, no, no. But yeah, you actually reminded me about when you said that all kinds of maintenance work is usually hastily and cheaply done. I remember the first two houses where I lived in the UK. I was actually kind of appalled by just the quality of the houses, and or like how the garden was kept. It was basically like stepping into a jungle. And I
Mm-hmm.
even remember I was staying in this house with housemates, and our cooker, I think, got broken, and we contacted our agent because we had rented this house through an agent, so we had paid a good amount of money on top of everything else because it was through an agency. And he had it replaced and said, just if you can just move the cooker in the back garden, and I will be there by the end of the week to retrieve it. So it was summer, it was not supposed to rain. So we said, okay, well, if it's just going to be here in a couple of days, it should be fine. And we took it outside, and it didn't show up for 2 months, like, and it just stayed there, just rotting and rusting. And sometimes we try to contact him, like, the cooker is still there, it's still outside. Yeah, I've been so busy, I didn't manage, but I'll be there next week. And then he never was. And yeah, it took like 2 months for him to finally show up and take this away. And
But I hope you at least have something to cook on.
yeah, no, we did, we got a new cooker, but it's just the fact that this cooker was just left there to rot in our garden. And, maybe it could have been, maybe it could still be recycled, parts of it. But if you just leave it in the open air to rust, it's not going to be as good. So yeah, we were a bit puzzled. And also I remember that once, like, the wind made my bedroom door slam, and a piece of plaster fell from the ceiling and wall, and there was just a hole in my bedroom's wall. And yeah, like, wow, okay, great. And the thing is, I was paying what for my standards is an insane amount of money for that bedroom, because maybe it's not fair to compare the cost of living between Italy and the UK, but in Italy, for a single bedroom as a young professional, I think you're looking to spend like, I would think, depending on where you live, but 250 euros per month, more or less. And I was spending like, what was it, 450, 480, something like that. So that was a
Yeah,
lot of
and
money.
let's remember that in Britain you are living in like a posh university tourist town, and
Yes,
you live in a posh university tourist town now in Italy as well.
right.
So it's not like you're comparing oranges to apples; you're comparing like to like.
Exactly. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, that's very true. But yeah, and also my personal experience of living with an English person, because my boyfriend is English and he is the best person on the face of earth. But one thing that really put our relationship in trouble was his idea of cleaning and my idea of cleaning. I kind of had to re-educate him and to get angry several times. And not because it's not that he won't clean, because, the classical, I'm a man, so I don't clean kind of thing. It's just that he doesn't see the point of cleaning as much as I do. Like, I remember when we first started dating and we were still living in separate houses, I used to go over to see him at his place, and I noticed just how incredibly dirty the kitchen floor was. And so after dinner, I used to start sweeping, just because I thought that this is disgusting. It can't stay like this. And he said, "Oh, don't worry, the cleaning lady will be here in 3 days, and you're going to leave this stuff on the floor for 3 days." So they basically never cleaned. They just waited for the cleaners to come once a week, which, by the way, always did a very hastily done job. So it wasn't even
Yeah,
like
good
deep,
enough.
yeah, it wasn't even deep cleaning. And they just tried to make do with it for the rest of the time. And I was like, what are you insane?
Yeah, I wanted to say that it may be like just a male female thing more than like national thing, because for example my girlfriend is like that as well. I just finished cleaning and she grabs a hoover and she needs to correct after me, but when you came to this, I'll be okay for 3 days because cleaner is coming. This is something unimaginable for me. So
Yeah. No, no,
so
no.
it's not just
No,
this usual stuff that until you got a girlfriend, you don't know that you can put milk in the fridge in 5 different wrong ways. No, it is actually something with a national culture
yeah,
apparently.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there might be some male female roles at play here. I don't know, but he's usually very, he does his part. It's just that he, at first at least, he didn't seem to think that cleaning was such an important thing. And I
Mm.
noticed, to be honest, going to see his family, I noticed it's the same for his family members, male or female. So I really think there's a lot of cultural difference at play here.
Yeah, but I want to come back also to what you mentioned with the story about this cooker that was sitting there for months and nobody was bothered. See, I still do on occasions visit a lot of farms for my work. I've been delivering to farms
Hmm.
and whatnot. And what struck me that those farms are often like they look like some abandoned place, even if there are still working farms. You drive into the yard and you get like a pile of rotten pallets, uh, which were obviously lying there for several years and they are overgrown with nettle. And then on the other side, you got a sand in this like aggregate bag from some obsolete builders trading company that no longer exists. And then you got like pile of rotting old farm machinery from the 60s. And even there is a farm on Isle of Skye which I once just walked along the coast and I found myself on that farm, and it looked really funny because it was like a timeline of the history of the Mercedes-Benz vans, because right next to the sea was completely rotten, this Mercedes T2 van from the 80s. Then it was like a first generation Mercedes Vito, then it was a second generation Mercedes Vito, and like as you go going uphill, like every single one of them was newer and less rotten, and some were like occupied by chickens, some others had some stuff stored in them like old planks of wood and some rags, and the one at the top was like 12 years old Vito, and it looked as it still could drive. And then at the farmer's yard, it was like brand new Sprinter. So apparently he was driving them, and when they were, I don't know, failing their MOTs or getting too rotten or whatever, he was just pushing them down this road heading to the beach, and then pushing the next one to it, and then pushing the next one to it, and they literally seemed like they were touching each other. So probably when he ran out of space, he just took the tractor and he just rammed them all down so he can make space for this newest one. And apart from everything, I don't understand, because even if your vehicle fails MOT, there's still some value in it. You can sell
Mhm.
it for scrap, you can sell it for spare parts, and yet they just let them rot in the shrubs behind the farms. And they live in one of the most scenic places on earth,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
the mecca of tourists from the whole world, Isle of Skye, and they look out of their kitchen window and they see these beautiful mountains. They could probably see otter hebrides if the weather is right. They can see this beautiful bay, the beach, and the scrap, a pile of scrap vans
Yeah.
next to the beach that they place themselves. I just don't get it.
This is exactly the kind of thing that Italians, if they see that in Italy, would say, oh, only in Italy this kind of things could happen. You would never
Yeah.
see this in the UK
Mhm.
or in Germany or wherever. But yeah, and this is also the kind of thing that, like, in Italy, I can only imagine seeing in very, very, very remote rural areas, very underdeveloped areas. So that is really, yeah, it's mind boggling.
Yeah, but you know what? I think that would be a nice place to finish it, because this is so engraved in the British culture
Hmm.
that if you look at this child cartoon Shaun the Sheep, which is a brilliant depiction of the English or British countryside. This beautiful old house and all these green hills and the stone walls between them. It's just perfect to every smallest detail. And yet, like half of the episodes, the plot is based around the fact that the sheep found something in this giant pile of scrap that is sitting in the middle of the farm, and they do something with it.
Yeah.
So basically, the perfect depiction of the British countryside got a really nice house, green hills, dry stone walls, and a pile of rubbish in the middle of all of that.
Yeah.
Isn't that telling?
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. But maybe to finish on a kinder note, maybe we can say something else we like about the UK. And one thing that comes to mind, and it kind of ties with this whole not caring much about the, appearance of things. And one thing that translates into something positive, I think, in the UK is the fact that nobody judge. I mean, in my experience, and I think cultural at a general cultural level, nobody judges others based on how groomed they are, on their physical appearance, on how they present themselves, how they dress, which is something that happens a lot in Italy and something I really hate.
Yeah. And if I'm to add something positive, I'm on the line if that's a positive thing or not, but I think it's positive. What I like, at least in Glasgow or even in the most remote places, that the bins are everywhere. Like in Poland, unless you're in the city center, sometimes like you eat a Mars bar and you have to hold to your wrapper for several hundred meters
Yeah.
until you find a bin you can place it in.
Same thing
Here,
in
the
Italy.
bins are everywhere, at every corner,
Yeah.
in the most remote places. So if you wanted your country to be clean, it would be really, really easy to do so.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, maybe in one way it's a positive thing that the bins are everywhere, but in other way it makes just the things worse.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. No, but it's the same in Italy, actually. So, yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so there is our rant for Britain for today, I guess.
Yeah.
And if you don't have enough, you can listen to another chapter of You Are Not So Great Britain next week.
Bye.
Bye.